I was recently stitched in a video where the creator tried to use Romans 7 to debunk Torah observance, but Romans 7 actually confirms Torah observance and the fact that Paul was using the Old Testament and Torah to confirm his teachings. So if you click my comment here, it should take you to that creator's video, but I wanted to show you how Romans 7 actually confirms Torah observance. I already have quite a few videos about this, so if you know this information, just bear with me. But for the rest of us, let's take a journey through the Torah. Let's start with what Paul says in Romans 7. First of all, he literally says, I'm only speaking to those who know the law. That's verse 1. Meaning, if you don't know the Torah, you're not going to understand what he's saying next. Because he goes in talking about how a married woman is bound to her husband while she lives, but if the husband dies, you're released from that law of marriage. Then he talks about the wife being adulterous because she went to be with another man, but if the husband dies, she's freed from that law and she can remarry another and she's not an adulteress. Then Paul talks about how we have died to the law through Christ so that we may be remarried. All of this is Paul laying down the groundwork for explaining how Gentiles are grafted into Israel in Romans 11. This is a continuous letter. This isn't separate books. You need to read Romans from start to finish all in one sitting. You can't study this letter over the course of 3 or 4 months and actually figure out what he's talking about. Paul is building precept upon precept to make his point, and everything he says in Romans 7 forward is to explain what he's talking about in Romans 11, how the Gentiles can become grafted in. In Exodus, God marries the house of Israel on Mount Sinai and confirms the covenant with them. A covenant is a marriage contract. Look it up in Strong's. And the covenant was made between the house of Israel and the Word of God. The Word of God being Jesus, since he is the Word of God made flesh. The Torah made flesh. But Israel fell into spiritual whoredom, idolatry. And in Jeremiah 3, God sent them away with a certificate of divorce. But he kept the tribe of Judah in covenant because of his love of David. And this may not seem like a big deal, but God follows his own laws. In Deuteronomy 24, if a man marries a woman and sends her away with a certificate of divorce because of her whoredom, he can never remarry her again. The former husband's not allowed to take her as a wife again because she's been defiled, and that's an abomination to God. This is why Paul needed to explain these laws to people, because they were reading the scriptures and thinking they couldn't be in covenant with God because he sent Israel away with a certificate of divorce. Christ's death is the only way you can be grafted into the covenant with Israel. Romans 7 supports Torah observance.